What's the deal, friends? Somewhere between the black and the white, there is that shade of gray. I'm Mark Gray, and welcome to today's edition of the Gray Area. And college football season is now for certain two things. There will be no football or fall sports season at America's historically black conferences. Both the SIAC and CIAA have said no to fall sports. Hopefully there'll be football in the spring. And to get a sense of what may be going on, I should say, here in our neck of the woods, which is CIAA country, is the athletic director at Bowie State University, who is also the chair of the CIAA's Athletic Directors Association. He's our good friend, Clyde Doughty, who joins us via Zoom. Clyde, thanks for taking the time to join us. You know, I know these are those times where you athletic directors earn your keep. Normally, we're talking about counting down to a season. Now we're just talking about, well, operating in the era of a pandemic and all the things you've ever had to navigate through in your career. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I haven't, and the world hasn't seen anything like this in our lifetime. It's one of those unprecedented moments where you're just going to have to make some tough decisions in tough times, and that's what everyone is doing. You have people all over the map, Mark, following certain directives and others following other directives, and we haven't come together as a country to address the situation as properly as we should have. But it now has cost people's lives, it's cost us time. Perhaps, you never know what could have been. We could have been back by now if people just had rallied around each other and rallied around the medical people. But it is what it is at this point. And no, I have never been through anything like this. The student athletes are suffering. The students as a whole are suffering. Our society is suffering. And hopefully we can address this situation in a timely fashion so we can get back to doing what we have been doing pre-COVID-19.
Clyde, talk to me for a second emotionally how difficult this decision was for you, the rest of the athletic directors, and the commissioner of the CIAA to make a decision to basically cancel fall sports.
For me personally, I can't speak for my peers, but I try to take the emotion part out of it and use judgment and the science and the data to make a decision that was sound for the safety and welfare of everyone and the resources that we were needed to address the safety and health and issues for everyone and their welfare. So then you put back in the emotional part, and that's the part that sports is all about. You take the money out of sports at any level, Mark, and you have the emotion, getting out there and competing against each other, the thrill when the crowd is roaring and it's homecoming and the band is playing and, everybody is just juiced up to engage with each other on all kinds of different levels. So it was extremely emotional from that perspective because now we're not doing something we're used to doing at this particular time in the year, in the calendar year. But we're just putting it off until a future date so that we can get through this particular situation without any further harm to anyone.
Looking at the future, and particularly spring football, during the conference call with the media, it was stated that it is being explored as a conference only model, perhaps. Do you have any real, at least preliminary look at what might transpire? Because that would be a lot going on at the same time.
Well, you're absolutely right, Mark. But for the good of the order, we felt that we needed to do this and make this decision. It's going to be a heavy burden and lift on all of us, all the conference members, to try to manage sports that normally are spread out across a 2-semester scenario and now plug it into 1 semester. But for the good of, like the order, like I said, for the good of safety, we are working out, and we have some preliminary schedules that we have looked at. They need to be tweaked before we can release them. They're in a draft form. We need to check with our coaches, see how they're going to work. We need to check with our two-sport athletes to see how it impacts them. So we need to look at our facilities and see what games can be played at one time so that we can accommodate all the spring sports that are usually happening at that time or that are happening at that time, and now the fall sports that now have been shifted over into the spring. So there's a lot of discussions that have to be had, but we have had those discussions going into this. We knew why we were doing this. So now at the same time, we talked about the why, we talked about the how we were going to do this, and we have discussed those issues, Mark.
So it's not a matter of when then, or if, it's when and how.
Correct.
To your point about the dual sport student athletes, there are a lot of people who are pensive about, it's certainly fans, parents, is my child going to have his or her scholarship? Can you give us some light on what's going to happen with the athletes who are receiving aid from your schools?
Well, first and foremost, that was one of the initial discussions we had going into this. Regardless of, even if we were playing, some people might be hesitant to play, even if we were going to play. We weren't going to pull anyone's scholarship at BSU. And then we had that discussion across the CIAA, and all the chancellors, presidents, athletic directors were on the same accord, saying that we were not going to take anyone's scholarship and work with them during this unprecedented year to support them. Because we have to remember, Mark, and as you know, sports is not our life, it's part of our life. And the goal that everyone comes to Bowie State University, Virginia State University, Virginia Union, so forth and so on, is to get an education. Sports is a means to an end. You enjoy that during your time there. You're part of the band, you're in a sorority or fraternity, you're in a club, but those things are just secondary to the education. And that's what we thrive ourselves on, academic excellence for all of our students across the board in all of our institutions.
Clyde, so that's good to know. Also, as the host school now for the next 3 years of the CIAA tournament, such a short window inside the end of football season to basketball season, then the tournament. The tournament must be a part of the conversation. Have there been any tweaks? Can you share any kind of exploratory information that's going on relative to the 2021 CIAA basketball tournament? Is it in harm's way?
Everything's in harm's way, Mark. And, you know, as we had started this discussion early on when we made the announcement to come to that the CIAA tournament was coming to Baltimore, there was a lot of hoopla, as you know, and everybody was excited about it coming to North after 15 years. And for this pandemic to hit at the time it did, you know, it puts a little monkey wrench in the machinery. However, we have had those talks with Baltimore. We continue to have those talks with Baltimore. We're going to do the best thing for the city of Baltimore, for the CIAA tournament as we move forward. There might be some postponement there because maybe we cannot get our games in and have a tournament like we usually have. Maybe we just played at a conference school. And these are just thoughts, Mark, I'm throwing out. There's nothing confirmed. We still have to decide on what's the best thing for the tournament as we move forward, what's the best thing for the student athletes in the moment. So those things are being discussed and have been discussed and will continue to be discussed as we move through Corona. And as you said, I said in the press conference, Corona is making our decisions for us. If we all of a sudden it came up and it went away tomorrow, we'd be back doing what we're doing the next day after that. So as it makes its decisions, and as you can see, I'm looking at the news today, and down in Florida, it's spiking again, and across the country, it's spiking. In Texas, it's spiking all over the country. They had warned us of a second wave, and that second wave seems to be crashing onto the beach right now.
So what are the plans then to keep the fans, the students, the people outside the world of athletics engaged with, you know, their family virtually? I know the conference did its own virtual block party. That was a resounding success. Are there models in place just to keep the somewhat tangible feeling of being a part of the experience in cyberspace through all these technological tools that we're now using as a part of the education process?
Well, look at this, Mark. You and I are talking through this technology right now where we're used to sitting face-to-face having an interview. So out of every pain comes some gain, and we are using the technology to interact with our student athletes. We got a lot of practice because in March, we all had to leave the campus and go home and be sheltered in. So we have been practicing and putting in the necessary work with the technology, with our student athletes. As you alluded to, a virtual party. The commission and I, as I chair the Diversity and Inclusion Committee for the conference, have sat and talked about various different programs that we would like to institute to keep people engaged. This SAC has been extremely active, the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, coming up with ideas that they would like to see during this virtual period. People have become extremely creative, Mark, during this period. And that's the wonderful thing about life and opportunity. It provides you an opportunity to move forward and do things that you never would have done before. I would have thought that, you know, you could go to school one day and another day you're on campus and still be in the same class. Well, now it's reality. So we are looking at all of that in the same fashion. And yes, we are working towards using technology to support our student athletes, our faculty, our staff, our administrators throughout all of our institutions.
All right, I'll let you go on this one, Clyde. Division II schools, you being one of them, rely heavily on student fees to keep the athletic budgets afloat. If there's a drop in enrollment, how would that affect you, and how important is it to make sure that in this downtime, as member institutions, alumni, fans, supporters like us, to ensure that the interest remains so that enrollments are up at Division II schools, particularly in the CIAA and the SIAC?
Mark, great question. And as you know, unbeknownst to a lot of folks, our fees support 100% of our budget. A lot of folks don't realize that, and it's based upon enrollment. So in a non-COVID year, if we had a loss in enrollment, it would affect our budget, and athletic directors like myself would have to make the adjustments within a department and look and see how those cuts are going to impact it. So in this year, Bowie State has been very fortunate that our numbers are still looking promising, although we're not going to get any increases in budgets, or tuition is not going to go up because of COVID and the decisions that are being made on the system level. We are looking to see how these cuts, and there will be cuts, we're still going to have cuts, how these cuts are going to impact us, and how we're going to work with the institution to provide the same level of support needed, especially in COVID, because we're going to have to look at various different areas that'll need increased social distancing and travels and buses and things of that nature that might have to have social distancing. We're working with the institution, looking at CARES funding and see if that can support the athletic department and other areas across the institution. So there's a lot of discussions going on with budget for everybody, and we're not isolated from that discussion.
He is Clyde Doughty, the athletic director at Bowie State University and the chair of the CIAA's Athletic Directors Association. Clyde, thanks for your time, man. Thanks for your leadership. And I'm pretty sure that once we come out on the other side, the conference is going to be resilient and keep it moving forward.
Thank you, Mark. We're CIAA for life, and we are the resilient CIAA. Thanks for all you do, Mark.
Hey, thank you. And remember, folks, it's the first time since World War II that there won't be a conventional college football season or fall sports campaign in the CIAA, and we can't wait to see them back. Again, thanks to Clyde Doughty, the athletic director at Bowie State University. Thank you for hanging out with us. This has been The Gray Area. I'm Mark Gray. That's Mark with a K, Gray with an A. Remember, you can find me all over the place in cyberspace at The Sports Groove. That's 24/7, 365 on a computer, smartphone, tablet, however you get your social media groove on. And remember, mask up, proper social distancing, wash your hands, and always give somebody you love a hug tonight. You may not get a chance to do it tomorrow. May you go in peace.